Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me. We're going to take a look at Burger Swap. Now, this is just a technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here. If you have insight on the fundamentals as to why the price jumped up recently, feel free to let us know in the comments below. But at this point, again, just strictly technical analysis. Bear in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. Also, if you'd like to contact us on Telegram and Instagram or Twitter, links are in the description below. Also a link for $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Burger Swap. Let's see what this has to offer. I don't know anything about this, but I've heard a lot of positive things from a lot of my subscribers asking that I cover this, so that is the main reason here. And the fact that the price just hiked up as well is also a good reason, because I always like to exercise a little bit of caution in climates like this. So if you're new, a little bit newer, even more tenured, hopefully you find benefit from understanding what we're going to be looking at here today. So let's go ahead and take a look. And just to preface too, I always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, because Bitcoin is the catalyst for most price movement in altcoins, as well as the fact that Ethereum network, most of the coins that I review as well are on the Ethereum blockchain or network. So it just makes sense to kind of look at those first. So that's the main reason for it, to kind of just quickly compare, and then we'll go ahead and dive into the technicals for Burger. So first things first, let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin. And we just focus on the most recent price action here, because again, we know it hit its high of roughly 64, almost 65,000, I think it was. And that was on the 14th. And then obviously the 17th, Judgment Day, the price went all the way down for a good 15%, and it kind of took a dump after that and then recovered, which is nice. So good news is, just to quickly note, the price has kind of hovered around the $47,000 mark, which is a good sign, because that is essentially a major support and resistance level. Right now, if you look at it, it is currently trending under that support line of 200, the 200-day moving average. That's this purple line here. And then also the price has it's kind of consolidating, for lack of a better term. So Bitcoin tends to do this sometimes. Likely the price will jump back up, but just know that we have the 50-day and the 100-day moving average as a potential support right around 55,000, and they're almost intersecting at this point. So all in all, good stuff from Bitcoin, but these trends here essentially are it was kind of crazy, but I think we're back on the right track. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to Ethereum. And speaking of the right track, look at this guy here. Goodness gracious. Ethereum has grown a lot. So just to quickly note, we see the Bitcoin sell-off here on the 17th. It was impacted initially, but it kind of ramped back up, sold off, and then came right back up, like really strong. However, the second Bitcoin sell-off kind of drove the price down again. And then a little consolidation, third Bitcoin sell-off on the 25th, and ever since then it hasn't looked back. I mean, look at this growth. What, from the 26th till now, 27%. Man, that's huge, especially for Ethereum. So, all in all, looking very good here as well. So just want to kind of preface with those two quick charts there. And again, this is a 4-hour chart on Ethereum, and it was the 4-hour chart on Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and take a look at Burger now and kind of see what's going on. Now keep in mind, Burger's been around for some time, but if I'm not mistaken, it was recently added to Binance, and that is the application I'm using right now as well. TradingView within Binance, that is the chart. And as you can see, there's limited data. It shows that they just, on 4/30, basically April 30th, it was introduced. So I'm likely pretty sure that's the case. I feel like Burger's been around for longer, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is essentially what's going on. It's new to Binance, so we're just going to take a look at it here. So keep in mind, we're going to look, I usually like to start with the 4-hour charts and the 1-day charts, but they're going to be a little off because there's limited data. But we can still look at it here. There's the 1-day chart. Oh, isn't that nice? Look at that. Anyways, obviously the price has increased significantly from what, $8.50 as a close on the 29th, upwards of making consistent higher highs at $21.30 presently. Okay, so we don't need to really look at the indicators because there's nothing here. That's the 1-day chart. 4-hour chart will also be fairly limited. Hasn't had enough time for the moving average convergence divergence, the MACD, nor the relative strength index. So honestly, we don't have much to go on here, which is fine. I like to choose my entry point based on the 15 and or 1 minute chart. So we're going to be okay here, but just something to note on the 4-hour chart here, the volume has increased in the last 24 hours. So you can see a pretty strong volume. Usually when there's that much volume, just before a resistance level is tested twice, there's likely a sell-off that's going to occur. And if their RSI was here, we'd probably see it being overextended. We'll take a look at the 15 to identify that, because that's usually where you can see it the best. But at this point, yeah, kind of just a very, very strong 4-hour bars just shooting straight up there. So interesting stuff. Moving on to the 15-minute chart. So let's just see if we can identify a good entry point and find a few things to look at here. So let's zoom out a little bit here. All right, so that's April 30th over here. Bit of consolidation, sell-off, increase, more consolidation. And in the past 24 hours, we've seen a significant increase, almost double. So one thing I want to point out here, of course, is the RSI. It's probably always my go-to initially, and I just want to kind of identify something here for you guys so you know what I'm talking about. I said this in my previous video, so if you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll learn from this. But the cool thing about the relative strength index on the 15-minute chart is that it always highlights good entry points, but also good selling points. Now in the 4-hour chart, it's helpful too, don't get me wrong, but that's more of a bird's eye view. If you're doing a long-term swing trader, it might be ideal or advantageous to consider the 4-hour chart and maybe only use that if that's the kind of trader you are. But majority of my, according to one of my recent polls, majority of my subscribers are day traders or short-term swing traders. Okay, so for those doing that, this is the perfect scenario for you. So in other words, when you look at the RSI, the relative strength index here, let's just go ahead and pick a date here to say on, well actually that was today still, but it was very early in the morning, basically 12:30 in the morning. We're looking at an RSI that capped up, hit about 77, but it jumped up here. So you can see that RSI that jumped up. You see what happened to the price afterwards. Okay, so it hit its peak, and then it had a major sell-off. Because again, that is a pretty strong sell-off when you look at it, because the fact that we're only looking at this time frame, it went up to 1551 and all the way back down to about 1345. So that was probably somewhere in the range of 10% decrease in price since it hit that all-time high at the time. But what I'm trying to identify here and kind of explain is that when the price goes up like this and you see the RSI essentially above 70, then that should be an indication to possibly consider selling part of your position to take some profits. Me, whenever I see RSI over that much on a 15-minute chart, unless I'm holding on for dear life and gonna just take it to the moon, some people might say, then I'm essentially going to not worry about that. Because it doesn't matter if the price comes down, right? You don't need to find a good entry, you already have a good entry point. But just say you're already invested and the price goes up to that point and the RSI jumps up over 15, then what we do is we sell a little bit, we trim off the top, somewhere in the range of 10 to 20%, and then we wait for the price to come back down before it jumps up again, or find a better entry point, right? And reinvest that total so you can essentially average down your cost. Okay, so just to see that, that's kind of an example there. The price comes up and then it comes back down because it was overextended. It was considered overbought. Moving on, take a look here. Same scenario. It hit almost, 82, 83, somewhere in that range. And look what happened. Came up to $18 and then sold off within approximately 30 minutes down to $16.40. Now that's probably not a significant dip, but hey, 10%. That's a good amount actually when you think about it. So it took a 10% hit when it hit an RSI over 70 and came back down. So, as you can kind of see the common trend here, same thing happened there. A little less because it had such momentum that the RSI just stayed over 70. But as you can see here, eventually it hit its all-time high, which I think it is still the all-time high. In fact, let's mark that really quick. We're looking at what, that's 2172. So it hit 2172. And then the RSI was super overextended here at this point as well, and it came right back down. So look what happened. Say you would have sold up here at 2172 approximately. You would have gained roughly 20%. So that was a 20% decrease in price over how long? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it took 1 hour to lose 20% from its all-time high. So what I'm getting at here is consider trimming your positions and taking a little bit off the top whenever you see the RSI over 70, because in most cases it'll drop back down. Now, I'm not saying to sell your entire position, because you want to stay in there and continue to gain what you can, because ideally if this price keeps going higher, you won't be out at a loss. You know, heaven forbid it keeps going, you would have still taken profits so you can possibly get back in and, you know, average your price down. But just, you know, see, if you can see that, you know, you look at that plus the RSI here, anytime you see that peak over 70, pay close attention to the price action and consider trimming off the top if you can see, you know, if you see it's like overextended. So another way to further that is to look at the MACD here, the moving average convergence divergence. When you see this upper line here spread, you know, further away from the lower line, and these red lines here too as well are much higher than the rest, then that tells you that the momentum has almost peaked, right? So that's just some advice there. Those are things that's usually how I make most of my money. I have a lot of long positions that I'm holding on to, but when I see the RSI jump up over 70 on the 15-minute chart, I pay close attention, because, you know, what goes up must come down, especially when it's considered overbought for too long of a time. Okay, so enough about that, but that's kind of just what I wanted to show you there. We do want to pay attention here because, as we can see, I mean, it's pretty much a resistance level. It's been tested 4 times. We could even bring this down a little. It's probably right around 2162. That has been hit 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So there is a chance that this being tested a 5th time, if it does, that the price might jump above and stay above and hold as a support level. Now, something to note, if you don't already know, the resistance levels or support levels, once they're tested multiple times, the more they're tested, the more likely they are to break. All right, so this being tested 4 times already, there's a good likelihood if it gets tested 1, 2, maybe 3 more times, it'll break through and hold. Now, the special thing about that is once it breaks through and holds above that line, then what you have is you have a scenario where the resistance level is tested so many times that it broke, right? But once it breaks, that new support level, originally a resistance, is so strong that it's going to work as a much stronger support level because of the fact that it was tested that many times as a resistance. So just kind of pay attention to that, you know, that like resistance levels, support levels, they'll be broken after being tested so many times. But once you get past that point and it becomes, you know, it switches from, you know, a resistance to a support level, then you, at that point, you'll know that it's going to be much stronger moving forward. I hope I explained that correctly. I can reiterate that later, but generally speaking, that is essentially something to note here, because it looks like it's trying to test this, but will it hit that? It's hard to say. Good news, though, let's look at some other indicators here, because we already looked at the MACD and the RSI. Actually, no, we didn't. We didn't look at the recent one here. RSI is under 70, so in pretty decent shape. But again, if it comes up here and starts peaking, pay attention to that. MACD, honestly, not much to worry about there. On the 15-minute chart, the MACD isn't super important, in my opinion. It helps us understand momentum, but nothing much else. So don't worry about like lines intersecting in that sense, because it doesn't necessarily tell us, hey, we got to jump in right now. But the thing that does help you a lot, at least on the 15-minute chart, this is my pride and joy. I think other people like it too, of course. I talk so heavily about it. It's just the volume weighted average price. So the VWAP essentially is this thick blue line here, and it is helpful because what it does is it gives us it tells us the average volume for the last 24 hours as a consistent price. In other words, this creates a strong support or resistance level that's continuously moving with the price instead of just an moving average that moves with the days. So it's nice because it kind of tells us what the average price should be, and if it gets too far away from that average price, then it is considered overextended. There's a large variance, and that variance being too great will cause the price to come back down. So we kind of saw that here. You see that separation from VWAP to the top of the price, it came back down. This could happen again if the price comes up here and is tested and rejects. We might see it come all the way back down to the volume weighted average price. Something to note. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 1-minute chart. See if there's anything more here to extract. Not a whole heck of a lot, honestly. I usually turn off my moving averages here just to kind of get rid of the noise, because 50, 100, and 200 day moving average on the 1 minute chart isn't super impactful. But as you can see here, look, it's making higher highs, higher highs. Gosh, I feel like it's going to try to test this resistance level again. So just something to pay attention to here, since the price is over VWAP and this is essentially a support level, and that's a resistance, one of two things will happen. The price will break above, stay above, and it'll essentially continue to make higher highs from there. And at that point, it might be worth considering, as long as we have confirmation, to take a small entry point and to see if it goes any further. I'm risk averse. I wouldn't like to do that. I prefer not to. I would love it if the price came back down and bounced off VWAP and I got in after confirmation and the price came back up. Or even furthermore, the price goes even further lower than the volume weighted average price and tests one of the moving averages on the 4-hour chart. Now, we don't have that luxury right now in this scenario because of the way that Binance, have the 4-hour chart is kind of irrelevant, so we can only use the 15. So why don't we just go ahead and look at the 15 again to see if there's any good entry points. And what I mean by that is establishing support lines. So let's see here. Let's find a support line. So we got support at about 1850. Maybe even a little higher too, because that was tested 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 times. So I would say about 1870 is probably pretty decent support. So it is working itself into this channel here. So in a perfect world, the price comes down, it breaks VWAP, and stays above the rough estimate of 1870 for the support level here. And if it bounces off this and stays above for just say 30 minutes, and we see it closing at least 2 green bars, and again, when I say green bars, I'm referring to like these two, for example. If you see it come down all red and then bounce off, and we see 1 and 2 solid green bars, then that would be a good sign to consider it taking an entry. And in that case, I would probably just take a 20 to 30% entry because this support level has been tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So that basically means that it's a pretty strong support, but also bear in mind, without confirmation, if you don't wait that 30 minutes and it breaks, which could happen because it has been tested that many times, it would work as the newest resistance line. And at that point, you either consider shorting or just waiting for the price to come down a little further and establish a new support level. But man, this sure looks like it wants to break above that, right? I'm excited to see what happens there. We may not be able to have that luxury in this review, but I can tell you though, exercise extreme caution. If the price comes above, don't just jump in. Wait for confirmation and do the same thing I just mentioned earlier. Wait for 30 minutes. If this line stays above, you're going to be in pretty good shape to maybe consider taking a longer position. But do not go all in, please, okay? Unless you know that Burger is like the last and only altcoin that you want to ever invest in, don't do it, okay? It's not worth it, not wise. I've been burnt too many times. That's why I always take small positions and I focus on small gains. So to me, 1 to 3% as a day trader, if you're just scalping a little bit off the top, shoot for a small goal. Oh baby, look at this here. Okay, this is cool. Yeah, so yeah, shoot for a small goal, 1 to 3%. And then if you're like a short-term swing trader, I would maybe shoot for somewhere in the range of 3 to 10%. Because if you look at this here, like let's just go ahead and mark what 3% would be. This is approximately 3%. So for me, just say I wait for confirmation and the price holds above this line, I would shoot for a gain that's this large. In other words, it'd be about this big, and then I would get out. Again, that's just skimming off the top with a 20 to 30% position. Obviously, it depends on how much of a position you are holding and how much you're investing total, but generally speaking, that's a good gain. I can walk away feeling great about my day if I had a 3% gain. Okay. Again, this is not a race. This is a marathon, and you gotta slow yourself, you gotta temper yourself, you gotta make sure that you survive to trade another day. I've said that in probably every single video that I have, and it's just true. You have to survive as a trader, and there's no other way around it. And this is going to help you survive by just setting small, realistic goals. So look at that. I probably would have made my percent right there in that little difference there. Let's look at the 1 minute chart. I want to see this here. Boom, look at that. You see how it broke through that resistance line? It has a longer green bar because of it. You see that happen a lot. Anytime there's a resistance line or support level that's been tested this many times, like what we identified that's been tested 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So you see how it shot through there? That's very normal. So you can kind of expect that to be the case. Keep in mind this could get rejected and come back down and do the same thing for this support level down here. But if this green bar that's forming right now, that's very new, it's only about 2 or 3 minutes in, if that closes green and we see another second green bar, it might be worth a consideration to take an entry. That would be my recommendation, to find an entry point. And at least that's what I'll do. In fact, I'll stay tuned here, see if I can jump on in. But simply put, that's what I think you should probably plan to consider doing. Again, do what you want, but to me, small gains every day seems to make the most sense. So I hope you did find this beneficial, and I really hope that if you got in at, what, $5 or $6 a few days ago, you're riding the wave and you're having a good time. Just be smart and be careful about your entry points, wait for confirmation, and ensure that you are patient and you always survive to trade another day. Never go all in unless you're planning to hold on forever. Okay? Take that away from this if possible, please do. Wow, nice. It is still buzzing. Hope this continues. All right, guys. Well, that's all I had for you today. Best of luck if you're currently invested in Burger, and I hope it all goes well for you. We'll see you in the next video. I will likely make another one too, by the way, soon, hopefully tomorrow after work, and essentially just make sure that you can see what it looks like then, and hopefully it's continuing making higher highs so we can keep a closer eye on this one. Good stuff. All right, thank you so much for your time. You have a great rest of your day. We'll see you.